So I thought today we would talk about what happened in Australia and what caused the argument that led to Johnny losing the tip of his finger and how important that argument really was. It played a role in basically foreseeing the future and what was to become of this relationship. So I thought it would be something that would be interesting to talk about. So sit back, get you a cup of whatever, enjoy, and let's talk about this. So, as you're aware, if you've been following this case at all, in Australia, a month after they had been married, Johnny and Amber had a really violent argument that ended with Johnny losing the tip of his finger and his finger being crushed. Now, the causes of this, by all accounts, is that he brought up that he wanted her to sign a post-nup, and this was something that, in all honesty, even AH had to expect that he was going to want a post-nup. We're talking about a man who, at the time of their marriage, was worth an estimated $350 million. So she had to know that was coming, and I don't feel like that would have sent her into such a rage because she would have been preparing for it. We're talking about a woman who, from day one, was gathering evidence and then, as she claims, recording him to let him see how he was truly acting because he didn't remember. But we all know what she was doing. She was getting evidence for whatever it was she needed it for. And I think there is a couple of possibilities, and that's one of the things I want to talk about. Because one of the other things that was said during this argument is that she was not going to be in the will. Now, these two statements in their self should not have caused the argument that ensued. When you are talking about two people who are reasonable and the person that it's being said to has not married this person for their money or for what they could get out of it, I don't think that it would turn into what it's turned into. But when you are talking about a person who obviously married him for what she could get out of him, that's been made abundantly clear throughout all this. I can see where the argument started. And as far as the will, I know that it's very reasonable for him to say that she's not in the will because he's stated on numerous occasions that he does this for his children and his grandchildren's future. But what I can't help but think about is the type of man that Johnny is. I feel like that there's a couple of things I kind of think was happening right here. I think that the type of man he is, he would have made sure she was taken care of should something happen to him. So that's one thing. And then also, I feel like that maybe he was testing her. Because at this point, I think it's very obvious that he had seen her violent outburst. And I think he's realized at this point that he's made a big mistake. I think that maybe he wasn't ready to admit it in his heart, but in his mind, he knew this was a mistake. And I think that when she reacted the way she did to him bringing up a post-nup, I think that he brought up the will to maybe see what her reaction was. I don't know that he had in mind or that he even realized that it would get as violent as it did. One of the things that stands out to me is that she gets so angry during this argument that she starts using liquor bottles as missiles. He said that the first one just narrowly missed his face. It just went right by his head. But what gets me is that the position of his hands when the second one came through. He obviously is so accustomed to her throwing things, to her being violent, that instead of taking a defensive position when that first one came through and covering his face or trying to stop her, having his hands out, trying to stop anything coming at him, he has his hands resting on the bar he's standing behind. And that's how it managed to take the tip of his finger off, is because when it landed on the bar, it hit where his hand was, and in the shattering, it cut the tip of his finger off. That has always bothered me because normally if you're in a situation where someone is throwing things at you, you're going to be, doing this number. You're going to be sticking your hands out, or you're going to be trying to stop them, or you're going to be trying to protect yourself from injury. He wasn't doing any of these things. And which it may be that the first bottle came through and it was several minutes later before the second one, but I kind of think that more than likely this all happened pretty quickly. And it's just speculation on my part, but I feel like that he was accustomed to her violence at this part, and that's so sad. But getting back to the thing about the will, I just feel like that it was, as I said, one, it was a test to see what her reaction was, or two, that he had realized that, I've done a terrible, terrible thing. I've made a mistake. And what gets me is that if he was testing her reaction, or even realizing he made a mistake, the fact that he's not comfortable putting her in his will and the type of man he is, I just wonder if he was afraid for his life at this point. I mean, it's not been said in court that he was, but for a man or a woman that is a victim of things like this, and especially a man in the position he's in, you got to think that more than likely he was aware of that on some level. And it might have been a genuine fear that she was looking to be the grieving widow. And that in itself is frightening. I know I've said it several times in different chats, even in some of the videos here, but when I think about the fact that there's a very real possibility that he knew that she could do such a thing to him, and this is someone he's fell in love with, that's not an easy thing to accept. For anyone who's been through this kind of situation, you question, what has happened? Why did I fall in love with this person? How did I let myself get so filled? There's so many things that run through your mind. And it's, I've heard people say, well, why didn't he get rid of her immediately? Why didn't he leave immediately? It's not the easiest thing to do, because at first you're in denial. You're in denial to the fact that it's even actually happened. You're in denial to the fact that you're not the reason that this happened. Excuse me. A lot of times you'll say, well, if I did this, or if I'd have just done this, that wouldn't have happened. And then there's also, you want to try to help the person, because at first your mind is saying to you, I'm still in love with this person. So, I kind of feel like that at that point, he realized he had made a huge mistake. And I just wonder if there was a fear there. I think there was a definite fear there. And I just wonder if maybe that was brought up after her reaction of the post-nup, to see if he was right in having that fear. I would imagine if that was something that was going through his mind, I guess he got his answers that day. It's a really sad thing, and the reason I say that it plays into what their relationship would become, because look at what she did. As soon as she knew he was ready to file for divorce, she filed for divorce. He tried to get her to keep things private. He offered to help her. She refused it. She felt like she wasn't getting enough. So she's forced his hand. And I've always known that people who tend to be the ones that you think would never do anything, they're the ones, if you push them too far, you have made a huge mistake. Those are the ones that will make you regret ever doing anything to them. So I think that's why this has become so important, not just as star power, but just the fact that what she did was so wrong. And she has pushed a person who generally is a kind, decent human being, but he's been pushed into a corner, and he's not going to allow this to rule his life and to be his legacy. But what do you think about it? Do you think that was a test? Do you think he knew? I'd love to know your thoughts about all this. Leave me a comment, and as always, if you like the video, please leave a thumbs up. Please share the video. Just help me to grow this channel, and I hope you'll go on this journey with me. And as always, until next time, be blessed.